You walk into a CNP examination. The examiner asks a simple question, and suddenly your mind goes blank. Do you describe your worst day? Your best day? What if you say the wrong thing? What if you look too calm? What if you forget an important detail? Here's the reset. You are not there to perform for a rating. You are there to describe your real experience as clearly and honestly as you can. Welcome to the Veteran Benefits Reset Podcast, where we help veterans and their families better understand the VA disability benefits process, one step at a time. I'm your host, Cameron Burrell, a U.S. Army veteran and founder of VetBiz Media. Today, we are talking about CNP exam day. We'll cover what the examination generally does, how to prepare without writing a speech, how to describe what your condition changes in daily life, and what to do after the appointment. This is general educational information, not legal or medical advice. Every veteran's records, service history, health, and circumstances are different. Verify current instructions through official VA resources and consult a VA-accredited VSO, claims agent, or attorney when you need guidance about your situation. Veteran to veteran, the goal is simple. Facts over frustration, education before action, and one responsible step at a time. A CNP examination is generally an information-gathering part of the VA disability process. Depending on the situation, it may address a claimed condition, the relationship between a condition and military service, the current severity of a service-connected disability, or the effect a condition has on your functioning. That distinction between a reminder and a script is important. A reminder might say sleep interruptions, difficulty standing, or missed work during flare-ups. A script tells you exactly what to say in exactly what order, because you are trying to create a particular impression. Use the first approach. Do not trap yourself with the second. If you get nervous, you can pause. You can say, I want to answer that accurately. Let me think for a moment. You can ask the examiner to repeat or clarify a question. And if you do not know or do not remember, say that instead of guessing. Now, picture a fictional example. We'll call him Sam. Sam has back pain most days. Twice a month, his symptoms become much worse, and he cannot stand long enough to cook a full meal. On a typical day, he can do some tasks slowly. During a flare-up, he may need help or may have to stop. Sam does not need to memorize a paragraph about his back. He needs to remember the pattern, what usually happens, what happens during a flare-up, how often the flare-ups occur, and what those symptoms change in his daily life. That is preparation. It helps him remember facts when nerves make it harder to think clearly. It is not an attempt to control what the examiner concludes. The question that often matters most is not only, what is the diagnosis? It is, what does this change in your day? A label is a starting point. Function gives the listener a clearer picture. Instead of stopping at, I have back pain, you might explain, when the pain is worse, I can stand for about 15 minutes before I need to sit. I avoid lifting a laundry basket because it increases the pain. That is not legal language. It is a concrete description of an ordinary activity. For sleep, explain how often symptoms wake you, how long it takes to fall back asleep, and what the next day is like after a difficult night. For concentration, describe what happens when you read instructions, follow a conversation, complete a task, or manage several steps at work. For mobility, describe distance, duration, assistive devices if you use them, and what happens afterward. For mental health symptoms, focus on what you notice and how you function. Maybe you avoid crowded places, maybe you lose track of conversations, become irritable with family, or need help completing routine tasks. You do not need to diagnose yourself or choose a phrase from a rating schedule. For work, be specific about attendance, pace, concentration, physical tasks, communication, breaks, or completing responsibilities consistently. Working does not automatically mean you have no limitations. Not working does not automatically explain every limitation either. Describe what is true for you. When you can, include frequency and duration. Often may mean one thing to you and something different to someone else. If you honestly know that a problem happens 3 or 4 days a week, or that a flare-up usually lasts 2 days, say that. If you cannot estimate, say so. Accuracy includes uncertainty.
There is another part of accuracy that can be difficult for veterans: describing the full range without exaggerating or minimizing. Many of us learn to push through pain, stay quiet, and keep moving. That may have helped us get through a mission or a workday, but pushing through does not mean the limitation is not real. You can be strong and still explain that you struggle. You can be grateful for your life and still describe pain, anxiety, fatigue, or impaired functioning. When symptoms change, describe the pattern. What is a typical day? What is a better day? What is a worse day? How often do those worse periods happen? What tends to happen before or after them, if you know? Sam might say, most days I can prepare a simple meal slowly. During a flare-up, I need help standing, and those flare-ups happen about twice a month. He is not selecting the most dramatic moment or pretending every day is identical. He is describing the range. The same principle applies to a good day. A good day does not erase a difficult pattern. A bad day does not automatically define every day. Tell the truth about both. And try not to borrow someone else's wording because it sounds persuasive. Your own plain language is more useful than a polished sentence that does not fit your experience. Sometimes an examiner's question may seem to ask for a medical conclusion. If you are not qualified to make that conclusion, separate what you observe from what you believe medically. You can say, I notice that my symptoms increase after activity, or my treating provider gave me that diagnosis. That is different from declaring what definitely caused a condition or what medical finding must be true. Your observations matter. You just do not need to turn them into a diagnosis. If a question is unclear, ask for clarification. You might say, when you ask how often, do you mean during the last month or over a longer period? Or could you explain what you mean by functioning at work? A clarification request is not an argument. It helps you answer the question that was actually asked. Try to be complete without wandering into unrelated stories. Answer the question, then add an example if it helps. If a short question causes you to leave out a major limitation, add that relevant information calmly. And if emotion comes up, that does not mean you are failing. Take a breath, gather your thoughts, continue as accurately as you can. You do not have to perform distress, and you do not have to hide it when it is genuinely part of your experience. Before we get to a simple checklist, let me take 3 assumptions off the table. First, you do not need a memorized speech. A short reminder page is fine. A rehearsed performance can make you more anxious and may not fit the questions you are actually asked. Second, you do not need to look visibly distressed every second. Some people become quiet. Some smile when nervous. Some appear composed because they have learned to cope. Do not force an appearance, and do not hide relevant information. Describe the reality behind the presentation. Third, you do not need a giant binder filled with every document you have ever received. Follow the appointment instructions and bring what is specifically requested. A small organized folder may help, but more paper does not automatically create better evidence. One more point. You generally cannot know the outcome by reading the examiner's tone, facial expression, or the length of the appointment. The examiner may be gathering information, reviewing records, asking standard questions, or assessing several areas. Try not to turn the appointment itself into a prediction. Afterward, make a brief factual note while the details are fresh. Write the date, the general format, the topics discussed, anything you provided, and anything you were unable to explain clearly. Keep observations separate from assumptions. The appointment lasted about 40 minutes is an observation. The examiner disliked my answer is an interpretation you may not be able to verify. Keep the appointment notice and scheduling information. If there was a problem with attendance, location, accessibility, or communication, follow the appropriate reporting instructions. If you have an accredited representative, share relevant questions with that person rather than assuming what the next step must be.
Here is the one-page preparation tool I would suggest. At the top, write the appointment date, time, location, check-in details, transportation plan, and any accessibility or communication needs. Under that, copy the conditions or issues being evaluated from the appointment notice when possible. This is a focus point, not an argument you have to memorize. Then write 3 concrete examples of how those issues affect functioning. Choose examples from sleep, work, concentration, mobility, personal care, household tasks, or relationships, but only include areas that genuinely apply to you. Next to each example, write the frequency and duration if you know them. Add 1 note about a better day and 1 about a worse period. Below that, write 2 questions for an accredited representative. For example, what does this appointment notice mean in my situation? What records should I review? How should I report a scheduling problem? What official VA source should I use to verify the next step? Finally, leave several lines for a post-appointment note. Record what happened, what topics were covered, and what follow-up you may need. Do not use that space to predict the decision. If a family member or caregiver helps you prepare, they may remind you of changes or examples you have overlooked that can be useful in the appropriate context, but your answers should remain your own. The examination should reflect your experience, not somebody else's performance. This checklist is not a claim strategy, and it cannot evaluate an individual case. It is simply a way to stay organized when nerves, fatigue, or pain make remembering harder.
So what should you do next? Before you go to bed tonight, open a blank page or note on your phone. Put the appointment details at the top. Add 3 honest examples of functional impact, including frequency or duration where you can. Write 2 questions for an accredited representative and leave room for a factual note after the appointment. That is enough to begin. You do not need a perfect binder. You do not need perfect wording. You need a reliable way to remember the truth when the pressure is high. A C&P examination is one part of the VA disability process. Prepare by reviewing the notice and confirming logistics. Communicate your actual symptoms and their effect on daily life. Explain better and worse periods. Ask for clarification when needed. Separate personal observations from medical conclusions, and document the appointment afterward without trying to predict the result. This is education before action. If you need individualized guidance, work with a VA-accredited veteran service organization, claims agent, or attorney, and verify current information through official VA resources. Thank you for listening to the Veteran Benefits Reset podcast. If this episode helped, follow the podcast, leave a review, and share it with another veteran, family member, or caregiver who could benefit. Download the free 7-step Veteran Benefits Reset Guide at vetbizmedia.com/veteran7. Your service did not expire. Your story is still worth reviewing. Take the next responsible step. Stay organized, stay informed, and keep moving forward.